You've probably heard this phrase before. Discomfort is where the growth lives. And sometimes that's true. But no one teaches you how to tell the difference between discomfort that's asking something of your soul and discomfort that's trying to protect you. Because not every moment of discomfort means you have something to heal through. Sometimes your body isn't resisting growth when it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's exercising guardianship. And when you don't know how to tell the difference, you don't become more evolved. You just become an easier target. Welcome to Gutter Wisdom. This is a podcast about power, desire, and discernment, explored through sexuality as a diagnostic lens for your everyday life. I'm Priestess Francesca, a former mechanical engineer who designed HVAC systems for New York City skyscrapers, and a professional dominatrix who spent years working with power and desire when collapse is a very real option. Until now, we've been talking about internal capacity, how to feel your yes and your no, how to voice it, how to practice discernment before the stakes are high. Today, we zoom out because before you enter any container, a relationship, a retreat, a community, a kinky power dynamic, you need to know how to read what's being asked of you when discomfort shows up. This episode is about how discomfort gets interpreted, and should I say more importantly, how it often gets misinterpreted. Because discomfort can mean very different things. Sometimes it's part of growth, sometimes it's guardianship, aka your body's intelligence trying to keep you safe. Discomfort by itself don't mean squat. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just information. Information you gotta learn how to decipher. Sometimes discomfort shows up because you're stretching into something new and your system is adapting. And sometimes discomfort shows up because something's just misaligned and premature or just plain old fucked up. That second kind of discomfort is not your wounding, it's not your resistance or your blocks, it's guardianship. The problem is that many environments don't teach you how to tell the difference. They actually teach you to just override both. And it can be tricky, real tricky, because growth and guardianship don't announce themselves that differently all the time. They can feel similar right up until that moment where something tender inside of you gets exposed. That's the pressure point. And just like I talked about in the cult series, your vulnerability is where people get sloppy, coercive, entitled, manipulative, sometimes to intentionally hustle you, but often without even really meaning to. So if you want a clean diagnostic, you do not start by asking, am I scared? Am I triggered? You start by looking at the invitation that brought you to this moment. Allora, the first question I want you to ask anytime you're invited into discomfort is this: has this vulnerability been earned? Vulnerability is not inherently virtuous. It's relational and not a state you need to be in with everybody either. There's a huge difference between choosing to be tender in a space that's been prepared for you and being extracted for vulnerability in the so-called name of growth. Here's an example. I once attended a retreat where in the opening circle, 50 people, most of who didn't know each other, were asked to stand in the center of the circle and share something about yourself you don't want anyone to know. A deep, dark secret. A deep, dark secret? Fuck out of here. Let's slow that down. If you were on a date with someone and they said, tell me your deepest, darkest secret, your body would probably say, I don't fucking know you. And that's not fear, that's discernment. But in healing spaces, sexuality spaces, that same signal is often reframed as resistance to growth. This is where the growth is. What's missing here is preparation. What's missing is earned trust. And what's missing is containment. Because after each person shared, what happened? They were told to go sit back down while the next person exposed themselves. No witnessing, no integration, no closure. Now, I have my own tools to hold myself, but many people don't. An unearned vulnerability without containment is not growth. It's overexposure that makes you ripe for exploitation. There's another layer to this. Often, After these mass vulnerability moments, facilitators will say things like, "We're your family now. We love you. We're here for you." And on the surface, that sounds caring. But when affection and belonging are offered immediately after someone has overridden themselves, that discomfort, overexposed themselves, it can pull them out of agency and into dependency. Not because an expression of love is bad, because it's being offered at the exact moment someone has been taught to not trust their internal signals. This is one of the subtle ways extraction disguises itself as care, not cruelty, but premature intimacy. So ask yourself, when discomfort comes up, has this vulnerability been earned? Okay, andiamo. The second question to ask is, when new information is shared, what actually changes? Growth-oriented discomfort that leads to vulnerability, that has been earned, will lead to adaptation. Something will shift. Guardianship being honored looks like responsiveness. Extraction looks like rigidity. Here's another example. That same retreat, we were preparing for a partnered sexual exercise, and the pairing method was oracular. Everyone picks something out of a pile blindly, and boom, you're matched with your partner. Before the pairing began, a man raised his hand, visibly shaking, and he shared that he had been sexually assaulted as a child by an older male, and that he didn't want to be partnered with someone who reflected that kind of archetype. It was vulnerable, and that was clear information. What happened next? Nada. The structure stayed the same. And the implicit message was, if you get paired with someone that makes you uncomfortable, tough shit. New information, same. Now, from a trauma-informed perspective, that's not neutral. I don't think anyone was trying to be malicious in this moment, but responsiveness matters. What could have happened instead is that the group could have named the bravery of the share, affirmed the desire for safety, and said, if you're paired with someone that feels a little too close to home, a little too close to that experience, we can see if anyone would be willing to switch. And of course someone would have been willing to switch. That small shift would have changed everything. Instead, I could feel him fucking spiraling from across the room, all alone in the unknown, while everyone else was like, he's growing. That discomfort wasn't growth. It was guardianship being ignored. This matters more than people want to admit. Your body doesn't just register the moment of discomfort. It registers what happens after you speak it. Your body is like a pattern recognition machine. It constantly is taking stock of information and asking, when I listen to myself, did I end up in deeper connection, more trust, more love? Or when I spoke up, was I more alone, more isolated, more unsure of myself, right? And that answer is not theoretical. It comes from the reveal after, which brings us to our last question. Now, this is the root question. So, presta attenzione. Pay attention. After you move through discomfort, ask yourself, what are the fruits? When discomfort is growth-oriented, guardianship eventually stands down. There's a relief, integration, a sense of, okay, thank God I can rest now. Healing unburdens, right? As we grow, we let go. When discomfort is guardianship and you override it anyway, the result is not expansion. It's often confusion, heaviness, self-doubt. And confusion is especially important here and is honestly one of my favorite allies to cultivate a relationship with. Confusion often shows up when your body knows something, but your mind is rationalizing you out of it. I don't have proof. I can't explain it. Maybe I'm just triggered. This must be my shit again. Confusion isn't your system's failing. It's a pause signal. If you feel more burdened on the other side of discomfort, that's information. This episode isn't about villainizing leaders, facilitators, or groups trying to build communities. I need to be clear about that. It's about restoring agency. Discomfort that leads to growth expands capacity without requiring self-betrayal. Discomfort that is guardianship, asking you to slow down, pause, or renegotiate, is something to pay real attention to. The problem is not discomfort itself. The problem is when systems, ideologies, and people teach you to treat guardianship as something to overcome instead of something to respect. Not every moment of discomfort is an invitation to grow. Sometimes it's an invitation to listen that you're in the midst of some bullshit. I hope you're getting by now that the goal here isn't to push harder. It's to stop pushing past yourself. When you can tell the difference between growth and guardianship, you stop confusing pressure with truth. And that has consequences, some internally, but also very much relationally, because not everyone benefits when you listen to yourself. We're going to talk about that next. In the next episode, we're going to look at what happens when that clarity isn't convenient for others, when your capacity disrupts the roles people got used to you playing. Hold on, y'all, because it's about to go down. If you want help identifying where your system holds and where it collapses, you can take the Engineering Hotness quiz at priestessfrancesca.com/quiz. I'm Priestess Francesca. Until next time, keep your mind in the gutter, y'all. You'd be surprised at what you find in the dark.